Welcome back to Wave Media. With the 2025 German elections taking place this Sunday, 1/5 of Europe's population will decide who will command a quarter of its economic and military power. To understand what this means for both Europe and China, we have invited Mr. Yanis, the former Greek finance minister, to share his insights and analysis.
Greetings. This coming Sunday, the federal election in Germany is going to decide who is going to be Chancellor. It will probably be Friedrich Merz, if the opinion polls are anything to go by. Mr. Friedrich Merz, the leader of the Christian Democrats, will probably receive double the votes of the current Chancellor, the Social Democrat Olaf Scholz, whose unpopularity is monumental. Nevertheless, Friedrich Merz is going to be forced to form a coalition with the Social Democrats, who are currently led by Olaf Scholz. Whether Olaf Scholz will remain in that government as a diminished figure or whether he will retire or seek another post, we can't tell. What we know is that there's going to be a coalition of the Christian Democrats with the Social Democrats, maybe the Greens, and all that because this is the manner in which the center of German politics, the center-right and the center-left, get together in order to keep the Alternative für Deutschland, the neo-fascist party, which is in the ascendancy, from the corridors of power. Tragically, that doesn't prevent fascism and totalitarianism from seeping into the fabric of the German state. Under the Social Democrats and the Christian Democrats and the Greens and the Free Liberals, I have personally experienced the totalitarian aspects of the German government, of the German police in particular, up close and personally. But I shall come back to this later. The precise composition of the coalition government will depend on which of three parties that are now teetering around the 5% cutoff point. You need to get 5% in Germany in order to get any members of parliament elected. And there are about three parties: the old Die Linke party, the party of the left, not particularly lefty, the Free Democrats, the liberals, who are essentially a voice for big capital in Germany, and a new party around Sarah Wagenknecht, a former left-winger, who's now trying out a form of xenophobia mixed with some social democratic policies. These three parties, if they all get in, or two out of three of them, this is going to reduce the capacity of Merz to form a coalition. Maybe he will need to bring in the Greens as well as the Social Democrats. What are the real changes we should expect after next Sunday, beyond the reconfiguration of who is in the ministries? Not that many, I'm afraid. Recall that the Christian Democrats and the Social Democrats ruled together under a Christian Democrat Chancellor, Angela Merkel, for more than a decade. During that decade, the current policies were set in stone. It was a decade that cemented austerity for the many, for the majority of people, not just in Germany, but across Europe, and mind-boggling money printing for the very, very few, for the oligarchy. It was a combination that crashed investment, caused Germany to fall behind China and the United States when it comes to new technologies, green technologies, electric batteries, electric vehicles, solar panels, wind power. It was a decade whose policies led to today's deindustrialization across the heartlands of Germany. Will this coalition of Christian Democrats and Social Democrats do better this time? No chance. I assign zero probability to that. They will be more cruel toward migrants in a bid to exploit the racism which is rising up through the fabric of German society. They are likely to relax their idiotic debt rules that this coalition of Social Democrats and Christian Democrats introduced 15 years ago to the detriment of Germany and to the detriment of Europe. And that's only because the numbers don't add up. They are in a very serious fiscal crisis and they need to pay for more guns and weaponry as imposed upon them by Washington, D.C., by the United States. What should China expect from this new government? If Kamala Harris had won the presidency of the United States, China should expect Merz's Germany to fall even more behind America's strategies, including the demand by Washington that Berlin decouples from China, puts the brakes on German companies investing in China, even agreeing with the suicidal policies of the European Union, of Brussels, to impose ridiculous tariffs on Chinese exports, particularly electric vehicles, solar panels, all those things that Europe cannot produce, but it does need. Merz would have been more amenable to agreeing to all that if Kamala Harris had won the White House. But with Donald Trump and J.D. Vance essentially blowing up the transatlantic alliance, there is a slight chance that the Merz government will realize that what the United States wants of it is totally clashing with the interests of Germany. And therefore there's a slight chance that Mr. Merz is not going to acquiesce to the demands by Washington that Germany moves away from China and cuts off more and more its trade links with China. Then again, German leaders and European leaders more generally have proven their cowardice again and again. So don't be surprised if Friedrich Merz bows his head and says yes to all the things that Donald Trump will order him to say and do against the interests even of German industrial capital. While still on Germany, let me go back to something I was saying earlier, the terrible news about the emergence of a totalitarian police state in Germany. This morning, today, as I speak, the movement that I belong to, DiEM25, the Democracy in Europe movement, had organized a meeting for this afternoon to discuss Palestine. The keynote speaker was going to be Francesca Albanese, the exquisite United Nations rapporteur on the Palestinian territories. An event that was co-sponsored with a German Jewish organization called the Jewish Voice for a Just Peace in the Middle East, as well as Amnesty International. This morning, early in the morning, the police informed our DiEM25 organizers that policemen and women will be sitting in the audience monitoring every word that will be spoken. To make things worse, before the event was due to start, the police barricaded our venue and told our organizers that they will not be allowed to enter. Since then, organizers have found another venue and are calling attendees to make their way to it. This is a clear and present dissolution of any semblance of democracy, not to mention free speech, in the heart of Europe. Democracy is now just a word in Germany. In a Germany slipping inexorably into a totalitarian abyss, like in the past. And sadly, the federal election this coming Sunday is not going to change that.